This morning, I'm talking basically about fire and initiation. The last couple of Sundays, I've talked about spiritual fires and what that means to those of us that are traveling in earnest and sincerity and as practitioners, this path of Agni Yoga and the ageless wisdom. So today I'm going to wrap up the last few Sundays of conversations to understand how these fires all coordinate in such a way alongside what is termed the rays, so that at a certain point in the evolution of our unfolding human soul that we can take initiations. Now, let me start with a story. This is a story that's called The Magic Monastery. Why did I visit the Magic Monastery? Well, I'm a monk myself, and the strangest thing happened in my monastery. We had a visit from the Buddha. We prepared for it and gave him a very welcome and solemn welcome. He stayed overnight, but he slipped away very early the next morning. When the monks woke up, we found graffiti all over the cloistered walls. Imagine. And do you know what he wrote? One word: trivia, trivia, trivia. Imagine. Well, we were in a rage. But then when I quieted down, I looked about and realized, yes, it is true. So much of what I saw was trivia, and most of what I heard. But what is worse, when I closed my eyes, all inside was trivia. For several weeks, this was my experience, and my very efforts to rectify it just made it worse. So I left my monastery and headed for the Magic Monastery. The brother showed me around. First, the Hall of Laughter. Everything fed the flame of laughter, big things and small, sacred, solemn, inconsequential. Only laughter there. Next, the Room of Sorrow. The very essence of bitter tears, those of the bereaved mother, the lonely, depressed, only sorrow here. Now, the Hall of Words. Words upon words, spoken and written. Alone, they must have had some sense, but altogether, total confusion. I cried out, "Stop, stop," but I was only adding words to words. Next, the Great Hall of Silence. Here, there is no time. He took me finally to the Hall of Treasures. "Take anything you want," he whispered. "The love of the Christ, the compassion of a Buddha, the wisdom of Solomon, the kindness of Mary." Oh, he said what to take. And he finally chose the love of the Christ and then headed back to the monastery. And his question to us: what treasures do you want to replace your trivia with? Is that wonderful? I just thought it was such a special story. In the Symphony of the Zodiac by Torquem Sardarian, we learned that the Holy Ghost is the light. It is the principle of active intelligence which created the first solar system. Now, in esoteric literature, the Holy Ghost is called the third ray. In the second solar system, she is associated with love, wisdom, the second ray. And in the third solar system, she will be associated with the first ray of willpower. Each zodiacal sign, each sun, each planet have different energies. Now, this is real important to pay attention to, stay concentrated on, so you'll understand the rest of this morning's talk. So I'm going to repeat this, that each zodiacal sign, whatever sign you are, think of your sign, think of your rising sign, think of where the moon was when you were born. All of these signs have energy. Each sun, each planet have different energies. Now, these energies are called rays. Very simple. They are called rays. Now, there are 7 rays. There are also 7 notes. 7 notes of sound and 7 colors. Each ray manifests in different colors, different sounds, or through different levels. So what I'm sharing with you now is the fundamental teaching of the rays. Do you want me to repeat it? I mean, it's really important that you get this. Oftentimes, this is what I find. This is so funny. As human beings, we are so funny. When we hear something really, really simple, we think, I already know that. And our mind wanders off over here. We hear something really, really complicated. I can't understand that. And our mind wanders over here. So I'm going to repeat this, whether it's simple or complicated, and hope that you're concentrated enough to pay attention. Each zodiacal sign, each sun, each planet have different energies. These energies are called rays. There are 7 rays, just as there are 7 notes of sound and 7 colors. Each ray manifests in different colors or sounds through different levels. Now let me move on. The mixture or fusion of different rays on different levels or planes with other energy patterns create different substances. This is called the chemistry of the stars and their rays, and play a distinct role in the process we undergo as we are striving to take various spiritual initiations. Now, these initiations are not where you go to a temple and you go through rituals and so forth, and you're initiated into a brotherhood. This is a different type, although they're related. Symbolically, they're related. When you are ready for any initiation, you must have enough substance of that ray, related to that particular initiation in order to go through the initiation. The increase of the substance of the ray is relative to your expansion of consciousness. it is also related to the actualization of the virtues that are related or correspond to these particular energies called rays, and also to the voltage of the will energy being released from your higher self. The 7 initiations are taken when your internal fires, the solar fire, the electric fire, fuse and blend. These 7 initiations are taken when the internal fires, the solar fires, the electric fires fuse and blend and evoke the fire of one of the 7 rays. Now, I know this is complicated, but if you can visualize, if you have a good imagination and you can visualize an image what is taking place here, you'll see a most beautiful symphony of sound and color and energy that is taking place as you go through each incarnation. You reincarnate, you have begun the path. A particular ray corresponds with your soul in this lifetime, and pretty soon a note, you begin to hear a note, a musical note, and that musical note, if you have the psychic sensitivity to hear that note, will now begin to navigate you, evolutionarily speaking, through this particular life. And as this is happening, then this combination of energies and fire begins to work together with the release of will from the self, and you find yourself progressing. You're never in a state of inertia. You're never looking back. You're always progressing and moving ahead in a substantial, spiritually substantial way. So I'm going to repeat this last paragraph that I just wrote here not long ago. The 7 initiations are taken when your internal fires, your solar fire, your electric fires blend and evoke one of the 7 rays. Now, in your physical body, there are 2 internal fires in your physical body. One is called the internal vitalizing fire, and the other is called latent heat. Now, the internal vitalizing fire is at the center of the base of the spine, and the latent heat is found in every center of every cell in your body. So we have internal vitalizing fire that's in the core of the base of your spine, and then we have the latent fire, which is found in every cell in your body. Those are called internal fires. But even though there are 2 fires, they are considered one, and the one is defined as fire by friction. It's a term you're familiar with. The solar fire. Solar fire is the second major fire or energy, and solar fire relates to the mind. So the fire by friction relates to the physical body, the solar fire relates to the mind, and the third major fire, called the fire of spirit, is also called electric fire. Electric fire is also called the flame, and the flame in this instance relates to the capital S self. You're not going to find this in Anatomy 101. This is the esoteric teaching that has to do with the unfolding process of your soul in preparation to take these major initiations called, or AKA, major expansions of consciousness. When the internal fires fuse and blend with the solar fire, this is when your personality, your true personality emerges. You're no longer the imitator of mom and dad or your school teachers or the people you dislike or the people you love. Now you're becoming a true integrated and aligned personality. And that takes place when the internal fires blend and fuse with the solar fire. Solar fire that corresponds with the mind, right? Okay. These fires start blending with the fire of the spirit, electric fire. These fires start blending with the fire of the spirit, and what happens now is the fire of the seventh ray is attracted. The fire of the seventh ray is attracted. The seventh ray corresponds to the first initiation. The sixth ray corresponds with the second initiation, and the fifth ray corresponds with the third initiation. See, this is a condensed version, or for you to understand this whole process and how challenging it is and how disruptive it can be to the status quo of your day-to-day life. And this is why people that are on such a path must put themselves in an environment that is conducive to the release of these energies in a safe way, in a creative way, in a progressive way. So the fusion of these fires with the fire of the seventh ray enables you to take the first initiation. The blending and fusion of the, are you still with me? Okay, all right, good, good, thank you. The blending and fusion of these fires, the internal fires, the solar fire, the electric fire, continues in spirals up through not just the seventh, but also the ninth initiation. So it is a continuous process. On each spiral, different ray fires meet. Are you imaging this? You know, like an artist would. Each spiral, on each spiral, ray fires meet, different ray fires meet, and blend and expand your consciousness. The consciousness of an initiate. The initiate is one who is on the path of initiation. So as we spiral toward each initiation, different ray fires meet and blend and expand the consciousness of the initiate, giving the person mastery over all that is not real, which we call the not self. At the ninth initiation, we can't even imagine, if the ninth initiation, the one flame remains. As the initiations proceed, the first thing that happens is the internal fires fade out. The internal fires fade out. That's the causes, those fires behind the fire by friction fade out. When this occurs, these fires are replaced by the solar fire, the fire of the mind. Eventually, at the fourth initiation, the fire of spirit, the electric fire replaces the solar fire. The fusion of the fire of the ray and the fire of the atoms of your vehicles take place within the furnace of the 12-petal lotus during your 4 initiations, during the first 4 initiations. In your subsequent initiations, this fusion is carried on within your spiritual triad. Now, take a deep breath. Okay. And for some practical instruction. To take the first initiation, you must strive to develop the virtues of the 7th ray. This is what I love so much about our teaching, is that we're given the cosmological point of view, and a view that will carry us through many, many, many reincarnations. And now the teaching says, and this is how you do it. So the teaching says to take the first initiation, we must strive to develop the virtues of the 7th ray. First initiation corresponds, right? 7th ray, first initiation. It is the virtues that help the fires. Listen to this. This is so important. It's so important to your health, your sanity, your balance, your equilibrium. It is the virtues that help the fires to progress in right proportion. And I bet you don't know that. I bet you've never heard that before. But now you have. So as you develop these virtues, the virtues of the 7th ray, you are enabling your physical, emotional, mental bodies to sustain the cells, the atoms, your glands, and so forth, to sustain the fire without damage. What is the damage? Ego, vanity, illusion, glamour, Maya. The virtues of the 7th ray. These are just a few of the key ones. The realization of unity, wide-mindedness, tolerance, humility. First initiation. This is all first initiation. Tolerance, humility, gentleness, and love. As you develop these virtues, what is happening is that you are generating the electricity, the spirit of the 7th ray. You are generating the electricity, the spirit of the 7th ray, which eventually takes you to the first initiation. The increasing fire purifies. It's purifying a certain percentage of your glamours, of Maya, of illusion, ego, vanity, and builds the proper centers and reveals new levels of consciousness. Builds the proper centers. We could have a seminar on what it means to build the proper centers. Maybe someday. Builds the proper centers and reveals new levels of consciousness through the purification of the fires. What are the proper centers? In this case, it begins with the sacral center. What is taking place is that the electricity of the seventh ray is first accumulated in the sacral center, but then it is carried up to the sacral center in the head. Its higher correspondence, higher octave. That's the first initiation. The second initiation, to pass into the second initiation, you must generate what? The electricity of the sixth ray. This electrical fire is accumulated in the solar plexus. And then it is lifted up to the higher octave, the corresponding center in the head. It is this electrical energy that enables you to refine yourself, refine your emotions specifically. So what are the virtues? The virtues that this person must work upon at this stage are deeper love, compassion, unselfishness, and right relationship. The center involved being the solar plexus, it must be protected from violent emotional attacks. So now we're getting a glimpse into why living in the right environment is so important. So now you're at a place where you are activating the electric energy of the sixth ray, and through the practice of these virtues. So you must be in an environment where these virtues give you the opportunity of such practice. See, deeper love, compassion, unselfishness, relationship, right relationship. The accumulating fires create temporary difficulties in the corresponding centers until the fires find a way to get to their higher correspondence in the head. It is the fires of the rays that help your centers to become active. And they're not just the major centers. Also, we have a whole lot of minor centers. I was just discussing this with a co-worker yesterday. We were working with the letters of Helena Rourke and the notebooks of Helena Rourke, and this came up, and so we were talking about these minor centers. And we really don't spend much time studying the minor centers. Some of the reasons are because those centers do not remain active through one's entire lifetime or through all reincarnations. They're only active when they are needed. So sometimes they go dormant. But at this point, I'm only talking about the major centers. So the solar plexus relates to the sixth ray, accumulation of energy of the sixth ray, while we are practicing the virtues of the sixth ray. And we're going to be refining our emotional nature. And through this process, we're going to find temporary difficulties. It is the fires of the rays that help our centers to become active. The fires of the rays that help our centers to become active. And radioactive, which means to give, radioactive means to give off energy currents that allows us to unfold, that allows our unfolding human soul to unfold. The applicant for the second initiation must try to sublimate, refine their emotions, live altruistically, and polarize themselves to a cooperative life. And this is why the group life is so important, particularly for the person that is striving and progressing through and evolving through the second initiation. This is how you can generate the energy of the sixth ray. You must strive to stand and function as a cause. Your striving evokes and brings the fire of the sixth ray. This ray is called the ray of abstract idealism and devotion. So during your life or chain of lives, you generate this fire as you express the acts of intense devotion and abstract idealism. What is curious to me is that there seems to be a lot of misinformation being spread throughout the esoteric community about the sixth ray and about devotion in a very negative way, a negative sense, which is wrong. It's just plain wrong because it's so misleading. So during our chain of lives, as we generate this fire, this electric fire of the sixth ray, we must find ourselves expressing actions of intense devotion and abstract idealism. So that's the second ray. The third, or second initiation. The third initiation, the person needs to develop which ray? Do you remember?
Okay.
Yes. Thank you. She listened. The fifth ray. The virtues to be worked on with the fifth ray for the third initiation. And again, this is not a complete list. Reverence. Reverence. Fifth ray. Reverence. Ooh, it's amazing. Because they're so scientific. I don't have enough time to be the Gemini person. Devotion. Devotion, again, devotion. Sympathy, love, and wide-mindedness to take the third initiation. You may wonder, well, aren't these virtues similar to some of the others? Well, yes. There are always similarities in the virtues, but remember that in taking progressive initiations, the same virtues have a wider range of relationship and they operate on higher planes. As the person advances on the path of initiation, they not only develop new virtues, but they expand and use more effectively on higher spirals the virtues that they developed in previous initiations. In each initiation, you will be tested for the virtues that you formally acquired. In each initiation, you will be tested for the virtues that you formally acquired, and then you will pass on to the higher correspondences of those virtues. It's interesting, people usually do not act by themselves. They are pulled or pushed and forced to do things. Most people act under the influence of the will of others. Many act under the influence of their own glamours and illusions and post-hypnotic suggestions. Whatever the case is, the applicant for the third initiation must free themselves from various influences and understand the process of free will. At this initiation, the third initiation, illusions are attacked consciously to free your mind from any pollution and distortion. The center involved in the third initiation is your Agni center, through which the fire, the generated fire, is used as a potent transfiguring agent for your personality bodies. The fire of the fifth ray now is fusing with the sacrificial petals of the lotus. This fire is used constructively, destructively, and through or for healing purposes, all through the Agni center. Each act of purification, each act of seeing things as they are, each act of obeying the inner command, and each act of honesty attracts more energy of the fifth ray and enables the initiate to come closer to the third initiation. I think I'm going to jump over a couple of these things and go to the fourth initiation. The fire of the will to harmonize releases the inner three petals of the lotus, and this relates to the fourth initiation. The fire passes through the innermost petals of your lotus. This is so amazing to me. Slowly consumes the 9 petals and finally releases the monadic fire at the center. The center of those 3 petals releases the monadic fire. At this stage, your inner guide leaves and the lotus slowly fades away as you walk the path of extreme renunciation and sacrificial service. The candidate for this initiation must attract the fire of the fourth ray. The candidate for this initiation must attract the fire of the fourth ray, which will enable that initiate to become an arhat. An arhat functions and dwells on the intuitional plane. They enter into the intuitional plane, becoming a cell in the body of the planetary life. The arhat's consciousness lives in the spiritual triad. As a person strives to bring the will to harmonize into their daily actions and thoughts, the fire of the fourth ray accumulates drop by drop in the base of their spine center, not the sacral, but the base of the spine center. It is through the accumulation of this fire, the center at the base of the spine becomes active, and the latent fire of Kundalini now begins to make contact with the fire of the other centers. See the science of this? The virtues to be acquired for the fourth initiation are serenity, confidence, self-control, purity, unselfishness, accuracy, mental and moral balance. The greatest lesson to be learned in this initiation is renunciation and sacrifice. The fourth ray prepares the candidate and then initiates them through an intense purificatory fire. in which they are totally free from any physical, emotional, or mental attachment or possession, and they stand as a sacrifice on the altar of God and humanity. You know, I can't help but think of some of our great ones, and of course, the most recent in this country with John Lewis. It doesn't mean that this great man was necessarily, you know, a fourth degree initiate. Who is to know? We are not to know. But what it does, such great people give us examples of the expression of these fires, and to the degree that these fires are functioning in their life. So if the fourth initiation, the greatest lessons to be learned is renunciation and sacrifice, we can see that certainly in, you know, John Lewis, but you can also see it in the first initiation of the initiate. You can see it in the second initiation. You can see it in the third initiation. The degrees of the fire of renunciation and sacrifice is what is the variant. So that fourth initiation, it would be the ultimate expression. So the fire of the fourth initiation, can be generated through using the acts of sacrifice, through developing the virtues I just mentioned, and through invoking the will to harmonize. At this initiation, the fire of the fourth ray and the will to harmonize eventually clears away all glamours from the path of the initiate. You see, through the ignorance of students that have studied partial information, they think by the time you've taken the third initiation, your glamours are gone. But the teaching tells us otherwise. The teaching is saying it's the fire of the fourth ray at the fourth initiation through the will to harmonize eventually clears away all glamours from the path of the initiate. So that's it. I know, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's intense. Well, so is fire. So, okay, so thank you very much for listening to these series of talks about fire and purification and initiation,